you need to be overconfident in order to start a venture, because otherwise, why would you do it? There's a lot of founders that were asked, so what would you do differently if you were to start again? And they say, I just wouldn't do it, because it's way harder than you think. There are way more complications, way more curveballs, but along the way, it's also a tremendous journey of growth. So I think you need to be overconfident in order to do it, because otherwise nobody would.
Every founder story sounds neat in hindsight. In real time, it usually feels far less orderly, a mix of instincts, evidence, pressure, optimism, and course correction. That's exactly why today's conversation matters. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of School to Startup, brought to you by Tracxn, a private market intelligence platform that's been supporting the global university ecosystem for over 12 years. Through our university partnerships, we work with institutions driving innovation and entrepreneurship, and this series highlights the academic leaders making that happen. I'm Harish, your host today. Joining me today is Chris, a lecturer at the University of Technology, Sydney, where he teaches entrepreneurship, bank management, and behavioral finance. Chris, wonderful to have you with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Great. Let's begin with your journey. Can you tell us a bit about your journey and what led you into academia?
Well, it's been a bit of an unusual journey, I'd say. It's I always felt quite drawn to really understanding problems, finding solutions, and then building a solution that works and test it in a market. So I always had this this drive towards curiosity, and I found it always very satisfying if I really understand something, which kind of led me to this unusual combination of academia and entrepreneurship, because both have one thing in common, which is the inquiry, the understanding of a problem, and trying to find a solution. And the one difference is probably that in entrepreneurship, it's a bit more practical. In the real world, that's a lot more messy. And this combination, even though it has a lot of similarities, is probably quite unusual in the sense that most academics are rather risk averse, whereas most entrepreneurs are usually risk takers. So I suppose I have a bit of a strange combination of those.
Interesting. A big part of your work looks at the practical side of entrepreneurship education. So what are the most effective ways to build a strong founder mindset in students?
What I found is very effective is, and I think what really helps there is my practical background. So I've started or founded and co-founded probably, I don't even know, maybe about 8 ventures over the years. And what I try to do in the classroom is to provide an environment where students go through that journey as if they were to actually start a business. So it's very much hands-on, and I provide them with feedback that is guided by my practical experience, which I found very effective. I try to encourage students to think outside of the box, to use all the technology available. So we do use a lot of AI for research and those kind of purposes. But really what it comes down to is that students, I'd say probably it's the initiative. It's the curiosity to think outside of the box, and to find solutions and to really get excited about it, which is not easy to do in today's world, which is very much driven by anxiety, ambiguity. Nobody knows what's going to happen next. But really to create that spark and this interest in creating something. I think that's a key. That's definitely a key component to it.
Amazing. Your research on investor confidence and overconfidence kind of feels very relevant to the founders as well, right? So, where do you think the line is between healthy founder confidence and fully blown, the startup will definitely take the world by Tuesday?
I don't know what's healthy and what's not, because I mean, I think you need to be overconfident in order to start a venture, because otherwise, why would you do it? I think there's a lot of founders that were asked, so what would you do differently if you had, and they're very successful founders, and they asked, so what would you do differently if you were to start again? And they say, I just wouldn't do it, because it's way harder than you think. There are way more complications, way more curveballs, but along the way, it's also a tremendous journey of growth. So I think you need to be overconfident in order to do it, because otherwise nobody would. And maybe the one light at the end of the tunnel here is that, just from a probability perspective, you're going to fail. But then if you try again, you're going to probably fail again. But it's sooner or later, the more breath you have, sooner or later it will work out. Unless you're delusional, of course, right? At some point, if it doesn't work out, I don't know what's the right time to stop. You definitely need to be overconfident, that's for sure.
Interesting. Since I work with universities a lot, I have seen a lot of student founders who are convinced their first idea is brilliant. Their pitch is also flawless, and the market probably just hasn't caught up yet. So, based on what you have studied about confidence and decision making, how can someone stay ambitious without becoming, professionally delusional?
I think I would go back to my previous point. It's about the passion and the spark, right? So if you do something that you find inherently rewarding by becoming better at it, by learning, by solving a problem, it's almost like a puzzle. If you're really passionate about it, then it doesn't really feel like work, right? So it becomes self-fueling at this point. But this being said, there's obviously lots and lots of moments that are incredibly treacherous and difficult.
You also teach entrepreneurship and behavioral finance, right? Which is a kind of a brilliant combination, because one teaches people to build and the other explains why humans make chaotic decisions while building it. So, in a classroom full of aspiring founders, what's the funniest or the most common decision-making bias you see that show up first?
Definitely. I mean, we talked about overconfidence earlier, and that's definitely a say all the time. I see that very consistently amongst first-time founders, second-time, third-time founders. Overconfidence is definitely a very strong one, and we usually assume that, or let me phrase it differently. Eventually, it would take twice as long, would be twice as expensive to get half the outcome. And consistently, what I observe is that people are way too overconfident about what outcomes they can achieve and what time. Time, definitely, because people are horrible at estimating time realistically. But then also budget. But I think the main driver here is really time. So that's something that almost nobody realizes, how much effort it takes to build something. And time, of course.
Interesting. And zooming out a bit on universities, how can universities make entrepreneurship feel less intimidating and more accessible for the first time founders?
I think it's really a tough one, because on the one hand, you can build infrastructure that, for example, supports, providing founders with, or aspiring founders with, maybe the knowledge and the support, maybe a bit of financial support. All of those things are possible. You can build those, and you can add a mentoring structure and all these kind of things. But I think at the end of the day, it really, it really comes down to the individual growth journey of the founder. So while we can provide all this infrastructure and support that can maybe or maybe accelerate the learning process, it's difficult to replace that, because that is the individual growth journey of the founder. But I think on the other hand, which is one thing that universities could provide better, in my view, is the infrastructure around failure, around experimentation. Because if a project doesn't work out, then it's a pretty rough journey. So to soften that, would probably encourage more people to experiment. So to increase the number of experiments that are conducted, which then hopefully would result in more output, while then also make the experience, if it doesn't work, less painful, and therefore the overall journey less intimidating. I think that's something that universities could do with the existing framework.
Interesting. And you're working within this Australian university ecosystem, right? So what are the biggest opportunities and the challenges you see for university-led startup development in Australia today?
I think definitely very significant opportunities it's just the evolving landscape around technology. Because just a few years ago, if you wanted to build a tech solution, you would have to invest hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars, and now you can do that with a fraction of that. So I think the barrier of entry has decreased a lot, and also with the new generation of those that are around that in that early 20s now, it's fascinating to see how differently their brains work and how quickly they adapt to change and innovation. So I think really fostering that, so to combining the new reality of a much lower barrier to entry of new solutions, and kind of extending my previous thought around experimentation. So kind of accelerating that experimentation loop, if you will, with the lower barriers of entry. I think this infrastructure could really pose an opportunity.
And specifically at QTS, how do you see the university supporting students and faculty on their entrepreneurial journeys?
Yeah, I mean, we do have some infrastructure in place. So there's UTS startups. There's a variety of different offerings that are looking at supporting. So that is the co-working spaces, the mentorship programs. There's a whole lot of opportunities there. I think it's just critical to understand, kind of feel the pulse of time, what situations are those founders in, what challenges do they feel, how's the world evolving around them. I think more structured support, but a healthy dose of mentorship as well, I think, can really support those.
Interesting. And if a student says, I'm interested in startups, but I don't think I'm a founder type, what would you tell them?
Well, I would try to explore what they mean by founder type. So if somebody is naturally curious and risk tolerant and is good at dealing with headwinds and challenges and setbacks, but really gets rewarded by the journey, then I would encourage them. If that's not the case, that's okay. Not everybody has to be a founder, because it is a difficult journey. I would not recommend this to anybody who is not. There's some people that really enjoy working in teams, and they get a lot of satisfaction from that. But if you're a founder, you're by yourself, right? And nobody really, and a lot of that sounds very gloomy what I'm saying here, but nobody really cares if you succeed or not. if you're a founder. So you need to have that inclination to experience reward from the journey itself. If you are somebody who really needs gratification from others, maybe from a boss, need the leadership, you like the social aspect of it, then I would probably suggest that's not for everybody, and that's totally okay.
That's a good one. So finally, where can our audience learn more about your work, research, or any upcoming projects you would like to highlight?
There's a few different things. Research currently, I'm not very active in the research space at the moment. I've been very active in both my teaching, but also in my startups. So I've recently started 2 new ventures. One is the Pillars. So it's a program for corporates where we optimize human performance, especially in times of AI, which is, I think, a very important problem to tackle. And then the other one is Pool Boys, which is a swimming pool service business, which is always like a fun project, but it comes along really well. So anybody interested can check out those 2, and otherwise, if anybody would like to get some time in my calendar for a chat, I'm always happy to engage.
Perfect. That was a fascinating conversation on entrepreneurship, behavioral finance, and how students can navigate the uncertainty, bias, and decision making on the path from school to startup. Chris, thank you so much for being part of this episode and for sharing such a thoughtful and practical insights with us.
Thank you very much.
Great. And to everyone watching, if you enjoyed this conversation, do like, comment, subscribe, and click the bell icon so you don't miss our upcoming episodes. See you in the next one.